So I'm working on a 2016 Chevy Sonic 1.4 Ecotec Turbo. This will be kind of similar to the Chevy Cruze 2 as well. Pretty much all the Ecotecs. We're going to be replacing the thermostat and the water pump at the same time. I'd recommend to replace those in pairs, and then I'll show you how to bleed out the cooling system. And that jack up the car a little bit. We might need to hold up the engine, so we'll put a jack right here, and between the jack, make sure you put like a 2x4 or some rags and to hold the pan, so you can raise it and lower it, because we're going to take off one of the motor mounts supports. Yeah, for that part, if you haven't already, give it a thumbs up, comment down below if you have any questions in this, and then hit that subscribe button for more upcoming videos. We're going to go ahead and start this video after the intro. Alright, so first thing what we're going to go ahead and do, we're going to go ahead and take off this whole air filter housing. So you need T25s. There's 2 bolts, so there's one right up there and then one right there. And then once you lift this up, you'll kind of pull this guy right back and then wiggle it right out. You'll have these little indentations that will be stuck in there, so once we get that out, we can wiggle that out. Then you have this red tab. You pull back. If you're having a hard time with the red tab on pulling back, you can use a flathead, and then just push down on this clip. We'll move that to side. Then we're going to go ahead and take off this 8mm right here on the turbo, and then we'll wiggle that right out. At this point, we don't want nothing going inside the turbo, because make your life mess up a lot of things. So we'll put a rag right there. We don't want nothing going inside there. The next thing we're going to go ahead and do, we're going to take off this intake filter housing. This should just pull right out. So yeah, so you just grab right here, pull right out, and then wiggle it from away. So you'll pull up this way until it pops off these clips, and then you'll pull away from this fender for these last 2 right there. So here's how I have my jack with a little piece of wood right there. You're not lifting up the car like that. I have my jack stand on the frame itself to support it, and I have the catch can to catch the coolant itself. So I'm just going to drain the coolant from the water pump and then go from there. So we're going to go ahead and unclip this guy. I'll show how to do the rest of this part. So you'll see everything on this, and then we'll go ahead and take off all the motor mount bolts, take off the bottom piece, and take off the belt, and then go from there. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take off the 15mm bolts. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The ones that we're going to start off with is on these guys right here, and then we'll go ahead and take off these 3. And these are all going to be 15mm, and then right here, this little bracket, we're just going to use a little pick. And just put that right there. So you're going to kind of dig in between these 2 and then slide to the right. So slide just like that. So stick in and then slide to the right. And then you'll just pry this right back. And then we'll have enough. We'll have more room. Once we do that, the whole motor should drop. So I have the jack right under there to support that. So next we're going to have 3 15mm bolts. So we're going to have one right here, one right here, and then one right here on the bottom of just this, literally just on the bottom. I lifted up the motor just a tad bit, just so where I can get enough play right here. It's not that crazy amount, but it's good enough for enough space. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and loosen up the bolts on the water pump pulley. So the one that I'm using is called the E12. So right there, it's a little inverted star. Then on the tensioner, it's going to be an E14. So right there, same thing, a little star part. And then we're going to spin it clockwise. Now that has a pretty good amount of tension on it. So if you're fighting yourself with it, just take it easy. We'll just let that hang down right there. Alright, so for the new water pump, basically what we're going to be doing, we're going to take off all the little E-bolts. When we're taking them off, we're going to move the bolts that we took off and put them on over here, because they're actually a few different sizes. So look at your new water pump to see where you're actually going to be taking them off, because I think there's one that's pretty close. I think it's around on this side that there's like one right next to it, right next to the thermostat. But yeah, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And then as I'm taking those off, I'm going to be putting those bolts onto the new water pump. And then the socket that we're going to be using is going to be an E10. So same thing, star all around. I'm going to go ahead and take off this sensor, just a connector piece. I don't want to damage it. So you pull back down this little tab right here, this white one, and then you can go ahead and squeeze it and then it'll come right out the way. Just don't want to break that in that process. And you're going to pull the water pump back. It shouldn't be on there pretty tight, but you'll pull it back and then let all the coolant run out. So in that meantime, we're going to take off this hose clamp, and then we'll go ahead and take off the thermostat hose clamp too as well. And on this hose too, I'm going to replace this hose, because I was noticing earlier that it was had like a little bit of coolant on it, and I could see that it actually has a little stress crack right here. You can see it right there. So it was actually had just a tad bit crust, but might as well fix it right now since I'm here. So now for the thermostat, we're going to go ahead and pop off the connector. So there's a little tab right here. You can either push down right here, but if you get like a little pick, you can pull it back and it'll come right off. We'll move that to the side, and then right here we'll just basically pull this guy right back. So just get it with the pick, and then just like that, it should seat in just like that. So that's how you'll know you'll be golden at that point. And then you can either pry it right back, and then we'll have one more hose clamp on the other side. Right there. I'll show that one. So there's the other one right there. But like I said, it's a little pain in the butt to get to. So I'm going to kind of use a tool like this. It has like some pliers at the end. You can actually get this at AutoZone. They're actually selling this now. So it's pretty convenient. Since I have this, I'm not going to sit here and try to struggle with this. If anything, what you can do is cut it and then put like a regular hose clamp on it. That'll make it easier. So I'll just basically squeeze this guy right there. Then I'll be able to bring it down. Just like that. And I'll move that over to the side. And then we'll go ahead and pop this guy right off. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and take off the thermostat. We're gonna put in a new one. Remember how your thermostat goes? Basically, kind of the sensor will go along with these guys right here. I just only need just the bolts. We got a new thermostat. Looked like someone was already in here putting silicone on this. Alright, so here's our new thermostat. We're going to go ahead and slap this on. You don't need to put silicone or anything on it because obviously it came with the new seal. Make sure that the seal is actually in and not cockeyed or anything. So yeah, everything looks pretty swell on that. We'll go ahead and put it in. So remember, thermostat, it can actually go in multiple ways, I think. Yeah, so we don't want it to go in any other way. So the pipe's going to be actually facing down, and then the thermostat connector is actually going to be facing up. So anytime when you guys replace this, make sure you get a new sensor or a new thermostat, because it doesn't make sense to replace the water pump without this. These guys are pretty known for them being faulty. Alright, so I switched over the bolts over to the new one. Now, when you're putting these bolts in, you need to be very careful with the very small ones. The big ones are not so much, but the very small ones will actually strip out the threads if you tighten them too much. So I'm going to find out the torque specs for those, and I'll let you know on those. I'm going to go clean up the surface area for the mating surface. So I'm going to clean it up with a steel brush and a box blade and some brake cleaner, and that's pretty much it. And then once I'm done doing that, we'll get right back to that. Alright, so we got the area all nice and cleaned up. So right here, don't forget about that top piece right there. So it doesn't need to be like that. It's actually pretty clean. So as you can see, and then you go over with brake cleaner, like a piece of rag, some brake cleaner, and then you'll wipe that down, just the surface, and then we'll put on the gasket. Now, if you're having a hard time with the gasket, what you can do is put like some dabs of silicone, just like maybe one on each side, and then, you know, kind of screw it in from there. I use the wire brush with the drill, obviously. You can actually do a hand brush if you had one, but this works out pretty great. Great speed of process. And now let's say if coolant keeps flowing right out, what you can do is lower the motor with the jack and let out the remaining coolant, just a good amount, until kind of the flow starts slowing down, and then jack up the motor, and then it'll kind of have like a little indentation where that the coolant's not coming out and stuff. So it's, as you can see, it's nice and dry. I gotta order out this part, and then yeah, we'll go ahead and start doing assemblies right now. Alright, so here's the water pump. So you can see the 2 dabs that I did. Now also too, what I would recommend is that if your surface on the block itself is actually pretty corroded, then I would recommend to put silicone on the areas that are pretty messed up. So as you can see, it holds in the gasket pretty well. And then with the old pump, working over to the new pump, we're going to switch over the bolts. So we'll put in the first bolt. And then at the same time, make sure you're putting in the thermostat hose, not the big one, the small one. Or you can put it in. Yeah, we'll put it in later. Don't worry about that. All right, so I'm gonna tighten down these bolts, and I'm literally not gonna tighten them down all the way because I'm gonna tighten them down by hand. So I'm just gonna snug these in with the ratchet. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and torque down the bolts. They need to be 71 inch pounds, or I believe it's like 5.92 foot pounds. So right there, 5.92 foot pounds. So it's pretty much nothing. So we're gonna torque it to inch pounds right there. You see INLB, so that's inch pounds. And then I got the hose. It's about like it's a 3/4 hose. So you know what? I would recommend to replace that hose that goes to right here, just because oil will leak onto it, and you know it's just so brittle. It looks like someone already tried fixing this up, but they tightened this guy way too hard, already damaging it. So they cut it, made it shorter. But like I said, I saw a little crust coming from right there. So better to replace it. So I would say put it right here. As soon as you see that little indentation on the hose, you can see it. And then for the other spot, same thing. Alright, so for right here, kind of screwed myself over. I should have put it on, but I think we can actually get it on. And I would also make sure that you have coolant in this hose. I actually have a tool that will cause suction in the system, but if you don't have that suction, make sure you have the cooling system pre-filled as max as possible. Make sure you're using GM Tech coolant. And then we'll swing this guy right about. And just like that, all set, all done. And then this is the tool that I'm using. Part numbers right there. Like I said, AutoZone has this. So there's the little clamp. It's a green one. Works just the same, or you can buy them on Amazon. If you didn't have that tool, I would basically recommend to either buy an aftermarket hose clamp, and then you could probably clamp it down from the side. Then before we put this guy on, make sure that you put some dielectric grease right here. So like I said, either you can put it right here, I'd put it right there. I'm using wheel bearing grease. Couldn't find my dielectric grease, but this will keep the seal from either getting stuck on there or improperly sealing. This is kind of like the BMWs. I had this happen to me one time. But and then try pulling the hose back to see if it comes back after clipping it right in. If it doesn't pull back, then you are good to go. Then we'll go ahead and clip back this. Make sure that's pushed in. Then we'll connect our cam sensor. Make sure the clip is pushed in. Then we're going to go ahead and put in our pulley. I'll say do these at 16 foot-pounds. That's what the dealer's recommending. And then we'll go ahead and put in our belt. Make sure you have your grooves cleaned up. Inspect your belt. Make sure that it's in its groove. Or all of them, that they're in the groove. At this point, it's pretty much cakewalk. Yeah, I mean, it's not really hard at this point. We're going to go ahead and put back on this bolt. This is going to be the top left one. I did notice that was leaking. So I'm pretty sure it's leaking from the timing cover itself. So if yours is leaking, what we're going to go ahead and do is that we're going to put some silicone right here on the threads. Make sure it's kind of pasty or a little bit thick. So like I said, that bolt was pretty wet. And then we'll just slam it right in there. So we're going to go ahead and slowly lower down the motor. So we'll see where we're at. So right now at this point we got it pretty close, and what you're gonna do you're gonna put your hand on the valve cover and you're gonna push against the motor, so just like this. So, and then you're gonna have your hand on the jack stand. But I would recommend having your bolts right there. We'll go ahead and lift this up, and then we'll just do like a mock thread. Get all 3 bolts in there. And there you have it. We have that all in. So we'll go ahead and lower it just a tad bit. When putting this guy in, make sure that you the little cold air intake where there's like a little boot right there. Make sure that's fully seated in. So right here, I got a little vacuum, and this is one good way to bleed off the system without causing any headaches. You can get this at Harbor Freight. Just found out they just had it, $79.99. Use the 20% code, and it'll be pretty cheap. The name is Maddox. It's a cooling system test kit and fill kit. Basically what you do, you're going to need a vacuum you need to cause vacuum in the system. Now you'll basically be causing all the hoses to collapse. So once those collapse, they'll kind of look like that right there. So you see how they're all flat. So all the hoses are going to do that. And what you're basically doing, you're causing vacuum in the whole system. So, and then this hose right here, this piece right here, you would use this little nozzle right here. This will, once you have the air compressor right here, you can get like a little mini portable one. It doesn't, like a little 3-gallon. It'll stay on the whole time when you're doing the vacuum. And then you would cause this, you would open this right here, have this one closed just like that, and then wait until you get about like to 25 vac or something around there. Now I noticed you did notice that the gauge did drop down. It's because right here, as soon as I start moving it, it'll start, it'll cause a little vacuum. So it's not that good right there. So the vacuum's not as pretty strong as it should be. But needless to say, it will work. So I know I don't have any other vacuums. You can do a pressure test, make sure there's nothing else going on. But we're gonna go ahead and get it. You can get a bucket or put this inside the 1 gallons. I would recommend getting a little 5-gallon bucket or something. Put that right in there, and then go ahead and fill back up the whole system like that. One way, if you guys need help bleeding the system, let me know. I'll go ahead and see if I can find out the bleeding procedure for this. But if this video helped you out, give it a thumbs up, comment down below, and then hit that subscribe button for more upcoming videos in the future. And thanks for watching.